Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Strata Hadoop World in the Javits Center in New York City. I'm here with Jack Norris. Jack, how you doing?
Good.
Happy
to be here, Mike.
So you are the CMO of mapr.
Yes.
And what's mapr up to today?
Well, it's been a big news week. Monday we announced the initiative of Apache Drill integrated with Spark on our distribution. And then we had two big announcements yesterday. One was the incorporation of mapr-db into our community edition. And mapr-db was recently selected or recognized by Forrester in their wave on NoSQL as the top-ranked NoSQL key-value database.
Okay.
So all that's available, and it's part of this real drive to make Hadoop more operational, to have kind of real-time impact on business as it happens. And part of that is having deep analytics on this massive data set in conjunction with kind of real-time database operations.
So what does Drill bring to the package for you? You guys now have Drill as part of your platform or your stack, whatever you want to call it. What does it bring to the developers that are using mapr?
So Drill is a really interesting open source project. And what was behind Drill was really, if you look at big data, part of big data is that if you have a step that requires some centralized IT action, it really slows down agility, it slows down your innovation, and it introduces a second step or a delay. And what Drill is about is providing self-service, so the ability to explore data without requiring centralized metastore. And in doing that design, they also embraced full ANSI SQL. So you get ANSI SQL plus this ability to work with these new documents such as JSON. So it's a really interesting project. It's got a lot of legs, and we're excited about it.
So one word that people are describing now, and it's almost like they're talking about operating systems, this idea of a data full stack. Mm-hmm. And do you guys see your offering as a full stack? And if you do, where does someone start, and where is the end result, the visualization or the analysis and insights, or how do you see your whole stack?
One way to look at it is we're really seeing the first major re-platforming of the enterprise. So there's certain assumptions. Hey, you've got enterprise storage that's separate from compute. You've got a production system that's separate from your analytic infrastructure. You've got on-premise that's separate from cloud. All of that is being brought together with a robust, scalable architecture. And part of that architecture is recognizing that data has gravity. So the less you can move it, the more things you can do on top of that data, whether it's a database function or a query or machine learning, the better off you are, the faster you can react, the more agility you have. And that's really what mapr is about. It's like have the most robust, enhanced data platform that can open up and provide all of these packages together in one distribution.
So can you unpack, you just said data has gravity, data gravity. Can you unpack that a little bit? What is data gravity?
Yeah.
And how does a CIO or a data architect, how do they recognize the data gravity?
Well, if you look at probably the number one data complaint, the number one complaint about data in enterprises today is the growth of these separate silos and just the sprawl. And it's typically driven by, I want to do this application or this analytic function, and it requires a separate data store. And then how do I get data there? How do I transform it? How do I load it? How do I manage it? And so by data gravity, we mean taking that data, and as it's large, it's just expensive and difficult to move and transform and copy. And if you can have it in one place and then do operations on top of that, you can respond faster, you can respond easier, you can do it with less people, you can do it more profitably.
So instead of gravity, you make it light or reusable, or...
It's basically bring the processing the data instead of taking data and moving it around and copying it.
Excellent. So if we were to sit down 12 months from now, let's fast forward to 2015. What's going to change in the industry, and how is mapr going to address those changes in the industry?
Well, what we're seeing is kind of the advent of new applications that either leverage new data sources or leverage new ways to do existing applications that really takes disparate data sources and analytics together and impact business as it happens. So we're seeing that impacting top-line revenue with new recommendation engines and ways to kind of respond to customer demands. We're seeing that in new cost reduction and operations, and the whole Internet of Things is really ushering that in. And then we're seeing different ways to mitigate and manage risk, fraud, security applications, et cetera. And instead of a bigger data warehouse to do reporting and discuss what happened, this is really impacting business as it happens. Predictive and fast response. So it definitely has a real-time element, and part of that is how do I provide the ability for the organization to adjust and make small little movements and modifications based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Ted Dunning and Ellen Friedman talk about anomaly detection.
Yes.
And that's something that, when you think about it, it's both detection because it's looking forward rather than having just to look backward. I think that's a really interesting angle.
And some of it is anomalies that you've seen before, and it's better pattern recognition and saying, hey, I know what this is, let's adjust to it. And part of it's seeing a lot of data and saying, well, that's a positive exception, how do I get more of those? Or that's a negative event, how do I eliminate those? And part of it is being able to respond to new things you haven't seen before. So Solutionary, an NTT division, is using mapr to understand and react to threats and reduce that response time. So they can bring it down to minutes to resolve and recognize new issues and then propagate that across their customer base.
So if you look at all of your customers and all the ecosystems built around big data, is there any industry that's further ahead in using this than others? Is it the commerce world or banking world, fraud detection?
Yeah, it's pretty broad adoption. We've got 500 customers across industries. We've got at least $1 million customer in 7 of the top 10. So we're seeing a lot of movement. I think in general, some of the Web 2.0 kind of internet businesses have responded perhaps more quickly and built new applications around Hadoop. So it's things like Ancestry.com and Millennial Media and companies that are providing services to organizations that you might not know it's Hadoop at the center. But we're also seeing Hadoop used in organizations where they've got many applications running across their company, 30, 40, 50 different applications on a single cluster, thousands of jobs a day. So the average customer in mapr, 80% expand their cluster within the first year, more than 50% within the first 6 months. A lot of that's driven by data, but more often it's expansion of applications.
Do you think there are companies still out there that don't get data and haven't moved and started to look at how can data inform their business going forward?
Yeah, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
Really?
Oh, we're seeing there's a lot of companies that might have a project or two, but they really haven't exploited the data sources that they can and the applications that can provide value.
So there's a lot of growth ahead of us. Yeah. So this maybe not just be a $1 trillion industry, but multi-trillion.
I think when you look at the size of the investments today in an organization and a replatforming the enterprise and a change in terms of how we store data, how we process, and how we analyze data, yeah, and the returns are enormous. So part of the announcement we did yesterday was a report on our customers, and customers are receiving a payback in less than 12 months, 65% return of 5x or greater, 40% 10x or greater, and also stats on companies that have started with another distribution and moved to mapr. So it's a lot of that is based on impacting this business.
There's real no excuse for any company not to be moving to big data and data solutions.
And I think our CTO and co-founder, MC Srivis, had a keynote this morning. He shared kind of the lessons that he learned at Google.
Yeah.
And I love to point to Google as a great example of the power of big data, because they were the 19th search engine, and within 2 years they were the dominant player, and they had a unique architecture to leverage the data better than anybody else.
And who needed anything other than AltaVista at the time?
I loved AltaVista.
Yeah, but
I'm showing my age. Yeah.
Yeah. Jack, look forward to that conversation next year.
Thanks, Mike.